BQ Prime. You're watching IPO Adda, and the company in focus today is Sula Vineyards Limited, Nasik-based wine producer, or maybe India's largest wine producer, because we do have very limited number of wine producers in the country. And joining me is Rajeev Samant, who is the MD and CEO of the company. The company is coming out with an IPO, which opens on December 12th and closes on 14th at a price band of 340 to 357. It's an offer for sale valued at 960 odd crores, which gives the company a valuation of more than 3,000 odd crores. Uh, Rajiv, welcome to BQ Prime. To start with, uh, it's a long gestation period that's required for wine industry. I would have thought that you would need some kind of growth capital going forward in to expand your entire production and base, but it's just an offer for sale which has come in of 960 odd crores. Why is that?
Yeah, that's right. Well, the last couple of years have been really good for us. The company has shown, as has been filed in our prospectus as well, some terrific results for the last couple financial years. So we've bounced back really strong from this pandemic. Lots more Indians drinking lots more wine, and a lot of that wine is Sula. So it turns out that our cash flow is very strong. So even though we are putting up right now a new cellar of 6 million liters capacity to add to the 14 million liters that we already have. We're doing that pretty much through internal accruals. So we looked at the whole thing and we realized that at this point, we don't really need to raise fresh equity for the company itself. And so we're very comfortable with that. We've got terrific lines of credit from our bankers also available to us. We have a very comfortable leverage ratio. We don't have too much debt. So that's why we decided to take this decision.
You are expanding your cellar capacity, and you're also growing at an aggressive rate as well, because wine adoption is growing at a aggressive rate in urban metros and tier one cities. How do you see the demand for that and the kind of capacity that you're adding in terms of cellar? Uh, how long will it be there for?
So as per Technopack, they do expect the compounded growth rate for wine to be far in advance of spirits and beer for these next few years to come. And we see no reason to disagree with them. And with Sula leading that charge, in fact, over the last couple of years, we've only been gaining market share. Yes, we have some pretty aggressive growth numbers ahead. So this 6 million liters will probably take care of us for the next couple of years. After that, we'll probably need to start building again. So in fact, since the day we started, we've been almost a continuous construction site. And I think that's not going to go away anytime soon. Anytime you want to sell a fresh liter of wine, you've got to put up a fresh liter of winery capacity. So that's the way it's going to go.
And currently, the capacity as well as your operations are in Maharashtra and Karnataka. Do you plan to venture out to other states, at least setting up facilities or storage facilities there?
There's a couple interesting opportunities that we can see, but I won't talk about that right now. But surely we don't think that we'll always be only in Maharashtra and Karnataka.
How do you see the state regulations panning out, Rajiv? Because in the last few years, we have seen uh, many states coming in and out of prohibition. Some states are imposing additional taxes. How do you see that for that? Maharashtra has been good because they recognize wine as a food processing industry, so you get incentives of 5 to 6% of your revenue, which comes from there. But other states, are they open to that kind of you know acceptance of wine as a food processing industry?
So Maharashtra and Karnataka both have very wine positive policies, you can say. And of course, as you've pointed out, one of the big reasons for that is because grapes grow extensively in both these states. There are a few other states also where grapes grow. So we do expect to see wine-friendly policies in another couple of states. I can't give you more details than that.
Which are those states
where
where grapes grow?
Grapes also grow in Telangana, for instance. So that's one state where grapes grow. And there are a lot of states that are starting to take a little bit more nuanced view of Alcobev policy and trying to think about this middle path between, pushback on pushing spirits and prohibition. And that middle path is about encouraging lower alcohol beverages, and that's where wine falls squarely into that. So we have some good hopes ahead. Though I must tell you, it's definitely a moving target as far as states policy goes. We all know that. But I do believe that we're not going to see the kinds of seesaws that we have in the past. Cross fingers.
No, you have benefited from the state policies with respect to industry promotion schemes, right? And you have mentioned in your RHP about the benefit that you have got of 5 to 6%, which is there. When are these benefits going to go away? And once that happens, what kind of impact may have on your PNL?
At this point, there's no sunset clause in that scheme. So I must say that I can't predict, what government is going to do, and that is, of course, our first risk that's mentioned in our prospectus. But I do believe that grapes and wine continue to be quite important for Maharashtra, from an agricultural perspective, from being a very farmer-friendly industry. You know that one bottle of wine gives a farmer more income than any other product, processed product, agri-processed product in the world. So, from that point of view, it's very enriching to the rural ecosystem, especially directly to the farmer. And so, we are pretty optimistic on that front.
What about the productivity of vineyard in the sense, are you seeing more farmers picking up that? Because you have contract manufacturing agreements with more than 200 odd farmers, if I'm not wrong. How do you see that improving? Are more farmers taking up grape plantations so that it increases? Because as you increase your capacity, you need a back end to increase your raw material as well, which is grapes here, table grapes. So do you see that kind of thing coming in as well to commensurate to the capacity increase and the demand that is coming up?
Very much so. So we have long-term contracts. Those are something like 12-year contracts with more than 300 farmers today. And we have farmers lining up out the door. Just to give you some statistic, there are around 1 lakh hectares, more or less, of table grapes in the state of Maharashtra. So Maharashtra and India are one of the top 4 table grape growing regions in the world. Table grapes, of course, being our eating grapes and raisins. And wherever you grow table grapes, there you can also grow wine grapes. So right now you only have around, 1,500 hectares of wine grapes, whereas you have 1 lakh hectares of table grapes. So we have farmers lining up. That also reflects the fact that they get a really good return from wine grapes, and that Sula has never let down a single farmer since inception. They get paid within 60 days of delivering their grapes to our wineries. So we never have a shortage of farmers lining up to plant for us according to our requirements.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, uh, plantation to set up a grape vineyard, you need at least 2 years time, right? Minimum 2 years, which is required. So, as you factor in your growth, you have more people already in the process of setting up that kind of capacity for you.
That's correct. So we have to project out 7 or 8 years. And on that basis, we get it planted today. So yes, there's about a 2 year, as you said, gestation period from the time the vineyard is planted to the time that the first grapes are available. So we always have vineyards in development. I'd like to point out that in the year 2022, we have had planted for us the biggest acreage ever, around 600 acres, which is almost double of the best year, which was a couple years ago, which was 300 acres. So 600 acres of fresh wine grapes have been planted for us this year, which will only come on stream after 2024.
See, you're one of the largest player in the domestic market, but you have a good challenge coming in from imported wines. Um, there is also, India is opening up through FTAs of foreign free trade agreements with Australia, and going forward, I think the UK FTA is also is in talks. Once that come in, alcohol which used to, or alcohol beverages which used to attract 150% duties, that will be phased out over a period of 5 to 10 years. How is that challenge going to impact you?
So, yes, imported wines have been a fact of our market for many years now, for well over a decade now. Already, There are imported wines available in the market at a pretty decent price. Sula has always held our own. Our quality has just been getting better and better every year. And today we have wines that are targeted squarely against the imported wines in that price segment. Our Rasa series, for example, our Source series, and doing incredibly well, winning over consumers all the time. On the subject of the FTA, as you're aware, an FTA has just been signed with Australia. I think that's an important one because Australia obviously is a big wine growing country. Our industry has very much had a seat at the table during those negotiations. And I must say, to the credit of our government, our commerce ministry, that they have not let the farmers down in this case. So we have an agreement at the end of the day that does bring down duties, but at the higher end for more expensive wines, but does not bring down the duties for cheaper wines, because there's a lot of support for these, these wine industries in those countries, more necessarily than what our government is able to support us here. So the central government has understood that, and we are very comfortable with the result of this free trade agreement. And this Australia free trade agreement will set most probably a precedent for more agreements to come. And at this point, we don't see it at all coming in the way of our strategy, our growth plans. It's really going to impact wines that are today priced at over 2,500 rupees in the market. At this point, we don't have any wines that are competing in that space. So it's a good result.
Does it open up some opportunity for you as well?
So Sula is also a wine importing company, though 90% of our sales are of our own produced wines made from grapes grown in India and produced in India. But around 10% of our business is the import and sale of wines from abroad. And so, yes, it does open up some opportunity. But I must say that today, Sula Vineyards, the main story is about grapes proudly grown in India, and wine proudly produced in India.
Correct me if I'm wrong, you have a contract manufacturing for grapes. Isn't the cost of contract manufactured grapes more than if you have your own captive plantations?
That's not necessarily correct, actually. A lot of the grape growers, they really know how to do their things. If a corporate starts to grow their own grapes, it's not necessary that our cost structure is going to be down. Today, agriculture in India is still quite fragmented. In order for a cost structure to come down, really, you'd want to be farming more than 100 acres at one location, for instance. It's not so easy for a corporate to put together that kind of land and do it. Plus, we want this whole industry to benefit farmers, and that also from the point of view of state government, policies that favor the wine industry. That's very much a part of the understanding that this needs to favor farmers. So we are very happy with our current system, where something like 95% of our grapes come from contracted farmers and other grape farmers. We only grow less than 5% of our grapes today, which is really for our highest end wines costing more than 1,500 rupees. That's it. And we do not plan to get into investing in more vineyards. We are going to invest in winery capacity and in brand building. That's going to be our business.
The grape season just started December to March. How is it looking?
Touch wood, things are looking pretty good. It's been a bountiful monsoon this year. Yeah, the monsoon had a slightly long tail, but that's no bad thing. It was very much manageable. It means there's going to be lots of water for the next couple of growing seasons. And as I look outside, I'm here right now at our vineyards in Nashik. Beautiful weather, and I feel a beautiful quality harvest coming up. We have been very blessed over the last 3 harvests. Every time, excellent quality, excellent quantity, and it looks like one more. But please don't hold me to that. Please, there are weather gods out there who always have their own opinions on that.
From a working capital point of view, your working capital net days have gone up. How do you plan to reduce that? Because you will have to increase your inventory going forward as you increase the capacity, and so with that your working capital days will also go up. How do you plan to keep control of those days?
So those days have gone up because of our doing. It's not something that it's not because sales have not been going the way that we wanted it, because we have been optimistic about the sales coming ahead. So we needed to produce and store more wine. So the way it works in wine, it's a very seasonal business. As you pointed out, the harvest happens between December and March. So when you look at our financials, it just so happens that they show the picture at March 31st. They don't show the picture at the end of the year. So they're showing the picture when our inventories are at their highest, because we've made the wine in harvest that we have to sell over the entire rest of the year. That's why you will see, working capital and inventories looking pretty high then. But if you look at the same picture at the end of December, it'll be a vastly different, much lower inventories, working capital. So Q4 is really our winemaking period. And then Q3 is our biggest sales period. So the wine business is characterized by inventory slightly on the higher side.
Slide, on an average, what should be the inventory days that you've been seeing at the end of third quarter?
So you could easily be seeing at the end of the fourth quarter something like 400 days, and then it's going to come down to something like 150 days or something like that by the end of the third quarter. That's something that you could expect.
Mm. Which basically means that, to give a better metrics, you could look at changing your financial year at some point in time to an calendar year.
If SEBI allowed us, I'm sure that a December to December, Jan 1 to December 31 would look a hell of a lot better from that point of view. But that's okay. That's just a question of optics. It doesn't really change the business the way it is.
So as per the last available numbers, 449 days of inventory, what is the kind of value of inventory that you carry at any point in time?
So you must remember, this number that you talk about, this is trailing 12 months. So when a company is growing pretty fast and expects substantial growth in sales, then that is not the right number from a forward-looking point of view. You can discount it by whatever 20% or whatever you think is appropriate. So that's the one thing that we should keep in mind. In terms of the value, I'm sorry, I don't have that number off the top of my head. But if you take our, it's again on the basis of the cost of the wine. It's not on the basis of the selling. So the value is smaller in that in that context.
Mm-hmm. From a pricing point of view, the biggest challenge for winemakers is that it gets restricted because of the state-owned regulations, right? And and even if your cost goes up because your cost of farming, cost of processing goes up, the pass-through doesn't happen very easily because the state doesn't, or state distributions doesn't allow you to pass through easily. Or even if it happens with a much lag, which happens. How do you manage that kind of uncertainty and cost pressure that comes in? Because in the last 18 months, every industry faced that kind of cost with respect to transportation, fuel, workers, fees. I'm sure the agri processing would have also gone up in that sense.
Sure. So the proof is in the pudding. If you take a look at our numbers filed in our prospectus, in fact, we've seen a surge in our EBITDA margin over the last couple of years. So we've really done everything right, and managed to avoid the kind of cost pressures that a lot of other companies, especially consumer goods companies, have seen. So there's a number of things that we've done to meet these pressures head on, and in fact, come out to the other side with a great performance. Let's remember that something like 60% of our sales comes from free pricing states. So Maharashtra, Karnataka, Goa, these are three of the main free pricing states. And the rest are states where there are some price controls. What we've been doing over the last few years is we've been moving more and more from selling our cheaper wines there to selling our more expensive wines. So for which we have much better margins and where we are really the leaders. So as per Technopack, if you talk about the more expensive wines in India, Sula has more than 60% market share. So that's what we've been focusing on. We've not been focusing so much on our cheaper wines. So premiumization is a big mantra for us. That's what we've been doing. Also, we've been localizing a lot of our packing materials. So I'll give you one example. 3 years ago, we were buying only 50% of our glass bottles in India. Today, we're buying something like 99% of our glass bottles in India. So we've really, we sort of saw what was coming in a way and localized our supply chain. So in fact, if you take a look at our packing material as a ratio of sales, it's come down over the last couple of years when all other companies, or a lot of other companies, it's been going massively up.
You also venture into can wine, right? In that sense, how's that doing for you? Because the shelf life for them is much smaller as compared to the bottle wines.
It's doing pretty well. And, the shelf life might be notionally smaller, but it's still, over a year. So it doesn't really impact in that case, because these are cans that are meant to be convenient, that meant to be, consumed on the go and consumed quickly. You're not going to buy them and keep them in your house for 4 months or 6 months. You're probably going to drink them that night while watching IPL or watching Hotstar, whatever it is that you're watching on that night. So I think people are really enjoying them. We launched our DR range in cans, and we've been getting some great traction recently. And we're going to look at what else we want to do with this format. To me, this format makes a lot of sense. Absolutely no reason why wine should not be available in can. People have limited space in their fridges. They want to just hold something and drink it conveniently. Sometimes they don't want to go through that whole process of having a nice glass and pouring it in. Sometimes you want to do that, but not all the time. So I'm very excited about wine in a can. I think it's something that's going to give growth ahead to the industry and to Sula.
Rajiv, one of the biggest challenge for you is the transportation of wines because you need to have temperature controlled one. Uh, how do you manage that kind of supply chain with temperature control, especially when you're moving out from western region where and southwestern region where you have a strong base to north and eastern markets?
So that's a very good point, and that is a challenge for sure. We kicked off our project Cool a couple years ago, where we started to identify all those points where we needed to have temperature control. Now, you must remember that a large part of it is out of our hands, and that's the final, the last mile, you can say, where it goes to the retailer, in fact, before it comes to the consumer. But at least we can control, obviously, our own units and then our distributors. So there we have insisted and made sure that all our distributors today have air conditioning. In fact, Sula supports it. We have a program by which we support our distributors with their air conditioning, and we even pay a slightly higher margin for that. We're starting to figure out the way to have cooler trucks. We are taking a leaf out of what the beer guys did a long time ago. So they've already done some very cool stuff with dry ice and things like that. So things that learnings from that. What we are really going to have to figure out is how to get the retailers to air condition their stores. That's really going to be the final place where we need to reach in order to get it all the way. But things are already a lot better today than when they were 5 years ago.
Rajiv, your borrowings stood at 231 odd crores. Um, are we going to see some kind of increase in borrowings because of the kind of expansion that you're undertaking, or are you going to use fully uh, internal accruals to do that? And is there a uh, roadmap how you bring down your borrowings as well?
So if you look at our borrowings, they have consistently and steadily come down over the last couple of years. You'll see that from the perspective. And that's a trend that I see no reason to say that that's going to be reversed anytime soon. The current seller that we are putting up is mainly through internal accruals, and we have no plans right now to be borrowing more. If we did need to, we do have lines available to us, but I think right now, in fact, we're down to just about 200 crores, down from 231 as per the H1 numbers that we filed. And that's a very comfortable place to be in. That's a very comfortable leverage ratio. We don't necessarily want to go up from that.
What about wine tourism? Because he was one of the first to start in the country. How is that doing? How do you plan to expand that to more cities or locales?
Wine tourism has been booming. So after we already before the pandemic, things were looking great. During the pandemic, obviously everything took a back seat, but once it's come back, it's been terrific. So, just to put it in perspective, ours here is possibly the most visited vineyard in the world, over 3 lakh visitors in a single year, and also the place where perhaps more people taste their first glass of wine than any other place on earth. So last year we did 85,000 tastings, individual tastings right here at our property. This year it's looking to cross 1 lakh tastings. So it's a phenomenal success for us, and it's definitely a pillar of our success, introducing in a very simple way, more and more Indians to this beautiful thing that is wine. and at the place where it's made, so that they leave from here knowing something about wine and becoming our brand ambassadors. So definitely, we've also got a small facility just outside Bangalore at our winery over there. So we've already branched out, and definitely this is something that's going to be very interesting to us in the future.
Just a final question. You have a good high amount of related party transactions. Will that get reduced going forward in some way?
I don't have the visibility what you're talking about. We do have some places where it just makes sense for the company to be acquiring certain assets that used to be, when we started this whole venture, it was a family venture, and even this main campus where you have 3 lakh visitors coming, you still have lands owned by the family, which it's going to make sense over the years for the company to start, being more and more independent. And that's about all that I can think of. But I don't think that our related party transactions are anything out of the ordinary. In fact, I think they are probably on the lower side.
Rajiv, it's been a pleasure talking to you. All the best for your IPO, which opens on Monday, December 12th, price between 340 to 357, 960.3 crores of issue, which is primarily of for sale of 2.69 crore shares. Thank you for watching IPO Adda.
Thank you so much.